Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Sid, boys, I would like to welcome Mr. Siddhartha Medappa. We call him Sid. He is my school senior from Bosco Egmore, and he's now in Dublin, Ireland. It's 4.5 hours behind us. And so over to Zufar, who will be the host for the day, Sid, inshallah.
Thanks, Abdul.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, one and all, and welcome to Sana Inspired series with our honorable guest, Mr. Siddhartha Medappa. I am Zufar of Class 9, your host for the day. And it's my great pleasure to welcome today's guest of honor, our Mr. Siddhartha Medappa, our correspondent Nurul Amin sir, our guide Abdul Rahman sir, teachers, and my dear friends to this interesting session with an eminent personality. Let's start the session by listening to absolutely beautiful nasheed of author of grade 10. Author?
Can you proceed with the welcome? Once he comes, we'll go ahead.
Okay. Let me now call Mehran of class 9 to for the welcome speech.
Yes, Zufar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to this great session with Mr. Siddhartha Medappa. I, Mehran, on behalf of Sana Moral School, welcome an inspiring personality for today's session. It is a great honor for me to welcome Mr. Siddhartha Medappa, a man with a vision, fountainhead of illuminating ideas, an idol of knowledge and inspiration to all of us. We extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Today, yet another day where we students began to learn through the eyes of others, to find out and experience what the world is like for them. It is also the day we grow bigger than our differences. A friendly welcome to all the students present here. I once again welcome you, sir, and wish you a delightful time with us.
Thank you, Mehran.
Thank you, Mehran. I now call Faisal of class 9 to introduce our guest of honor. Faisal, please unmute your mic and the screen is yours.
Success is when you autograph changes into a success is when you it's my great dedication. Yes, made all new Mr. that ask people and
It's a very bad line. It's a very bad connection. Are you guys hearing the same thing?
Yes,
Yes, Sid, he has an issue with the data.
Okay.
Faisal, we are able to hear you. Faisal?
When 14 years to Singapore as a chief priest.
Zufar, can you call Hanif to do the introduction? Unmute your mic, Zufar.
I now call Brother Hanif for the introduction of our guest. Brother Hanif, please. Brother Hanif, please switch on your mic and camera, please.
Is it audible now?
Not for me.
Ash.
Okay. It's not audible?
Yes, it's clear, honey.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
It's clear, brother.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening to one and all. It is my greatest pleasure to introduce our chief guest of the day, Mr. Siddhartha Medappa. He hardly needs any introduction. He has made all of us proud of his work in numerous capacities. Mr. Siddhartha was born in Madras and is a past pupil from Don Bosco Egmore and Loyola College. His passion is cricket and he represented the Tamil Nadu state cricket team. In the year 2000, Mr. Siddhartha decided to change careers and discontinued his cricket career and moved to Sydney to do his MBA. Over the past 20 years, he has enjoyed a successful transition into his professional career, which has now spanned 4 continents: Australia, Asia, North America, and Europe. Starting off in Sydney, Australia, he spent 14 years in Sydney and then moved to Singapore, New York, and Dublin to take up his new role as Chief Risk Officer for Zurich Insurance. Mr. Siddhartha Medappa still enjoys watching cricket but is now into running and has completed 4 marathons, 2 in Berlin and 2 in New York till date. His latest marathon was the 2019 NYC Marathon in November 2019. I now hand over the session to my friend Zufar. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Hanif, for such a wonderful introduction of our guest. Words do 2 major things. They provide food for the mind and create light for understanding and awareness. We all are here to interact with our guest and indeed to get influence through his words. Now, without any further ado, we will turn the time over to Mr. Siddhartha Medappa to know more about him and his profession. Then we will move on to the questionnaire session by the students.
Thank you, Zafar, and thank you, Hanif, for the introduction too. So, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Abdul. I'm very happy to be here with the Sana School students. I hope we'll have a nice interactive session in the next 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm also very happy to be here and talk to young students coming up, because many years ago I was one of you when I was in Don Bosco thinking about my future and my goals. So you heard a bit about me from my introduction from Hanif. Now, born in Chennai, I was born in a middle-class family with my parents and my brother Satya, who was also on the show, I think, a couple of weeks ago to talk about his experiences. Went to Don Bosco School to do my schooling, and in school I became very interested in cricket. Nobody pushed me into it, but I just found an interest in the game. And the more and more I played the game, the more I enjoyed it. So I started to think about how I could pursue that as a professional career in the future. But the main thing when I was in school in Don Bosco was that I made a really good circle of friends. I had a great time in my schooling, my classes with my teachers, and I built a lot of good relationships along the way. When I finished school in 1991, I moved to Loyola College to do my Bachelor in Commerce. Again, cricket was at the forefront. I was playing for the state team. I was a school captain. I became the college captain. And a lot of my time was spent on the cricket field. So as you'd appreciate, I was spending a lot of time playing cricket and less time with my books. But I still managed to balance both. So I always, my father always told me that even though you have a cricket career, you have to focus on studies, like any Indian parent would do, and they forced me to study and focus on my books too. So I had to balance between being a decent student and also being a professional cricketer. Once I finished my college in Loyola, my cricket career kind of took off, so I started playing first division in the meantime, and that became a full-time profession for me. So my job was to go to the cricket field in the morning. My brother and me would get up at 5:30 every day for practice in the morning. We'd drive to the ground, practice, come back home, have a quick breakfast, I spend a couple of hours just getting ready for the afternoon session. We leave home at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, go back for practice in the afternoon. Then we had to go to the gym after that. So finish practice by 6:30, go to the gym till about 8 o'clock or 8:30, come back home, have dinner, go to sleep. So we had a very disciplined life growing up. I had some very good friends growing up, and I had a very good circle where we always focused on the good values about being good friends, respecting elders, being humble, but also being dedicated to what we do. And that kind of taught me a lot of my basics and my principles growing up. But as I played cricket and as I started playing for the state team, I was always very ambitious, and I wanted to always make it to the next level and play at a higher level. Once I felt that wasn't going to happen for me, I made a decision in 1998, 1999, in the season when it finished, that I needed to think about a different career. So I felt I could either stay in Chennai and be a cricketer for many years, become a coach, and then just stay on in Madras, or do something different. My goal was to move away, to move out of India, to do an MBA and have a different career. And that's when I chose to go to Australia and to go to Sydney. The funny thing is, I didn't have a single friend in Sydney. I didn't know anybody in Sydney. So when I landed in Australia for the first time on July 7th, 2000, nearly 20 years ago now, I had to start from scratch. I had to go to university, start to build friendships, understand how Australia compared to India. It's a very different type of university setup. I had to really, again, upskill, learn new things, and take on a new challenge. And that's when I started to really think about a career. And I got a job in the year 2000 in an insurance company, and that's when I started my insurance career. So since I did that in 2000, I really liked what I was doing on the work front. My cricket career kind of went to the back itself. I didn't do much in cricket. I played for a couple of seasons for a club over there. But then in 2003, I totally stopped playing cricket. I was fully into my career. I did an MBA. I did a master's in risk and insurance. I did a diploma in applied finance. And I became full-time into my professional career. And that took off in Australia. And then, as you know from the introduction, I moved to Singapore, then to New York, and now in Dublin. I think overall I've had my life is basically in two phases. The first phase was my cricket career. My second phase is my work career. The one thing that's important to understand is in both phases, I've used very similar methodologies to be successful. It doesn't matter if you play sport. It doesn't matter if you are in an office. It doesn't matter if you're with friends. To me, the principles remain the same. And I'm hoping that will come to some of the questions. So everything I learned in India through my cricket career, from my family, from my parents, I kind of built on that in the coming years to where I am today. And I'm very lucky to be in Dublin with a company called Zurich. I have a position of Chief Risk Officer. By the way, and I got married in Sydney to a girl from Germany. So that was also very different to what you expect in India. So I've done things a bit differently in my life. I've had a lot of support from my parents in everything I've done. And so far, it's been a very, very fruitful and successful career. And I'm hoping to maintain this for the years to come. So that was my brief introduction, but I'm very keen to understand from you if you have any questions for me and any pointers you want me to provide you in your careers as you get to see different aspects in your world going forward.
Thank you, sir. Before we go further, I would request the student to enter your questions and comments in the chat box. If you'd rather ask question in person, you can mention your name in the chat box. Once your name is called, you can unmute your mic and you can ask your questions. Sir, I have a few set of questions for you. You have transitioned from a professional cricket career to moving overseas and now enjoying a successful career in 4 countries. Can you share your key points on achieving this success and also challenges you might have faced?
Sure, that's a good question. That kind of covers off my career so far in a nutshell. So when I mentioned cricket, when I started playing cricket in school, I started playing when I was about 12 years old. And then I got picked for the under-15 team, moved to under-17. At that point in time, we had some very good coaches in our cricket setup. And also we had some very good teachers and principals in our school too. And they always taught us the same things. They said hard work, perseverance is important. And my parents taught me one thing as well, to respect and do things honestly. So I've always maintained from my cricketing career, the one thing I've done really well is I've always been perseverant and I've been hardworking. As you'd expect in any sport, you'll have success, you'll have failure. As I was growing up, under 15, under 17, as I started to get picked for the state teams, I went through a lot of failure. So when I felt I had to be picked, I wasn't picked. I was disappointed. I would go back home upset. And then my only way of coping was to go back and work harder. So I would go back to the next day. I would go back to the ground the next day and do more. I'd get fitter and get stronger, and I would work harder on my game. So for me, the first thing was always to work hard and persevere, never give up. And that's been my goal in cricket. It's been my goal in work life. The second thing for me was I was always curious. I was never somebody who'd settle for just to be, baseline. I always pushed the boundaries. So my curiosity in my cricketing days was always to get better. So I would ask different people how to improve my game. I wouldn't just cut myself off from in a small circle. I would always go out and ask the players who played for India or for South Zone as to what I was doing differently, how to improve. And the same thing in my work life. Very curious. So when I was in Australia, I changed several companies, and I changed for one reason: to get better, to learn more, and to improve myself. And also with my degrees, I didn't stop with one MBA or one Bachelor in Commerce. I did a Master's of Risk and Insurance after that. I did a diploma in Applied Finance. So my curiosity was always to get better and improve. The third point that's helped me in good stead has been basically integrity. Everything I do in my life, I believe you have to be a good person. You need to be humble, and you need to have integrity. So always stand up for your values. Don't step back from that. And the fourth thing is respect. I mean, the one thing that's held me in good stead. So if you think about it, I've lived and worked in India, played in India. Then I lived and worked in Australia, Singapore, New York, and now in Ireland. You're dealing with different people, different mindsets, different backgrounds. So how we live with people in India is very different to how people live in Australia, New York, Singapore, and now in Dublin. Always respect people. So I've always maintained that you should respect people, treat everyone with the same way you want them to treat you. And that has always helped me in good stead. So I think these 3 or 4 traits, especially hard work, perseverance, integrity, curiosity, has always kept me grounded, but has helped me through my challenges too, when you have a setback. And I had quite a few in my cricketing career. When I felt I should be picked for Tamil Nadu, I wasn't picked. When I was picked for Tamil Nadu, I wasn't in 11. I was a 12th man serving drinks. I was very, very disappointed many times, but like I said, I would go back and say, okay, if someone didn't pick me, I'll go back and show them why they should pick me. I'll go work harder. So I think with those challenges, with those failures, I became a better person because I always went back to the drawing board to improve and to get better. Not to prove a point to anybody else, but to prove a point to myself that I've done everything I can to succeed.
So now I would like to call most well, thank you, sir, for a valuable reply. And I would like to call Mr. Hanif for his question, sir. Brother Hanif is.
Yeah, so you've been to so many different countries in different ages of your life, and I'm sure you've been asked this question before. So you would have had to adapt to different cultures and different lifestyles. So could you tell us more about how was it to adapt to these different cultures, and how was the experience living in these different cultures?
That's a great question, Hanif. So I think that was the key to my success so far. And the one thing, like I said, I've always been curious, and I've always been somebody who likes to meet new people. So when I was in India, I obviously had friends, I had my cricketing circle, but it's very different when you go to Sydney, where you have, like I said, when I landed in Sydney in 2000, on July 7th, I didn't know a single person. So I was always open to meeting new people. And there can be 2 buckets. So when I met a lot of my Indian friends over there, I saw a lot of my Indian friends stay with the Indian community. And it's not a bad thing, because that's what they want to do. So they would normally be with the same community, they would speak their own language, they wouldn't go outside their circle. I was a bit different. I always wanted to meet different people from different countries. So I would always go out and meet the international students. When we had to form groups, I would try and form groups, and these were study groups, to do assignments and to do presentations. I would find groups where we had people from Sweden, from the US, from different parts of the world. So we got together, and I started to understand how different people thought, different cultures, and I kind of immersed myself in that sort of attitude. So I didn't want to close myself off saying I'm Indian, I could stick to being with my Indian group, because that to me was a comfort zone. And once you get into a comfort zone, it's very hard to come out of it, because to be successful when you move overseas and you move to different countries, you need to be able to adapt to different cultures. So my attitude has always been to meet new people, and I've never been somebody who's been biased. So if a different culture has a different way of doing things, it's fine. It doesn't mean their culture is right, their culture is wrong, or my culture is right or wrong. As long as you respect people, as long as you work with integrity, and you have and you're humble, to me that worked very well. And for me, that was exactly how I managed these different countries. So if you think about Australia, it's a very different culture. They're very direct. They're very they have a different sense of humor compared to Indians. They love their sport. They love to be outdoors. And they're very multicultural. So they also mingle a lot. Singapore is a bit different. Singapore is an Asian type of background. So when I was at work, for example, in Australia, I worked with a lot of Aussies and English counterparts. When I worked in Singapore, I worked a lot with Asian counterparts, so people from China, from Hong Kong, from Malaysia. When I went to New York, it was very US specific. And to give you an example, when I had my team in New York, my team had 2 Americans, one from Russia, one from Bulgaria, one from China, and one from Nigeria. So again, and one from Switzerland. So again, you have different cultures, and you have to really think about. You have to listen to how they operate. You can't form opinions because saying I'm the boss, I'm Indian. This is not a thing that to be done. No, you have to understand how they operate, and once you listen to how they operate, you got to make things work. So I think the most important thing for me has been to go with an open mind, to meet new people, to be exposed to different cultures, and also learn about the cultures. So I did a lot of reading up about how different people actually work. You have different models where they take you through different cultures and how they actually operate in an office. What works for somebody from Switzerland versus somebody from Asia? What works for somebody from India versus somebody from the US? So you have to spend time to understand these different cultures. And I think being open, not being judgmental, is very important. And also trying to move out of your comfort zone is the main thing. Once you're in a comfort zone, it's very hard to break out of it, and it's very hard to move out of that bubble where you feel secure and safe. But if you're very secure and safe, you can't really experience and grow as a person. And that's my view, and that's what's been my success in me moving these 4 or 5 countries so far.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The next question is, what are the most
I can't hear the question, sorry.
how to overcome failures?
Sorry, I missed the question. I couldn't hear. The connection was bad.
How to overcome failure?
So the question is how to overcome failures?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess as we all grow, and even now in my life, I'm still growing, I'm still evolving, I'm still learning. We all will have failures.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Abdul?
Sorry, Sid. Zufar is having a problem. In between, there is another student who has put this question.
Okay. So, I mean, in overcoming failures, the first thing to do is not to take it personally. So again, from my experience, when I was going through my cricketing career, under 17, under 19, and then you play for the state for Tamil Nadu, I took a lot of these failures personally, and it kind of made me doubt my abilities sometimes, doubted if I was good enough to play for the state team at different levels. I mean, the one thing that I've always used to overcome failure is to understand why you didn't achieve that success at that point in time. So, again, if I go back to my cricketing days, I would think about why wasn't I selected for the team? Is it because I didn't make enough runs, didn't get enough wickets? Was it something that needed improvement? That was the first step, to really understand why I didn't achieve success. And the same thing with my work. So you always, when you're at work, there's two different types of groups. Some people are very satisfied with their job, the status quo, like I said, the comfort zone, and they're okay to be in the same level for 10 years. I'm somebody who works very hard, but also wants to be rewarded and recognized. So for me, when it comes to failures, I like to understand what the reason for the failure is. And then, like I said, for me, always went back to the drawing board. Work hard, improve your skill set as required, and go back and try again. Because unless you have failure, you don't understand how it is to succeed. So again, in my cricketing career, I had failures, I had disappointments in not being selected. My main goal was to go back and try again, and try and work harder and improve myself. And at a certain point, sometimes it's something you can't control. So in my cricketing career in Tamil Nadu, at a certain point, I knew whatever I did at certain points, I wasn't going to play for the state team for different reasons. And that's when you make a certain cutoff point and say, okay, do you want to go through this again and again, or do you want to succeed somewhere else? And that's why I moved out of India to go and have success in my professional career. But even in my professional career, I've had, I wouldn't say failure, but I've had challenges where, you feel you should be at a certain level because of everything you've done, but somebody else gets promoted and you feel bad about it. Again, there's two ways of looking at it. One is, are there areas where you can improve and you try again, or that company might not be the right company for you and you just move on to another company. So for me, the failures was a big stepping stone to me understanding how I could succeed, to become better in what I do. And I always went back to the same 3 or 4 traits. I mean, I was curious, I was working hard, and I tried to improve at every point along the journey. And in some cases, the only way to overcome that was to change, like I changed my profession, or think about a new avenue to achieve success. So there's different ways you can do it. And the one thing that I did different, I think if I look back to my young days with my failure, when I had a bad day in cricket, for this example, I would go back home, and I don't know if Satya is on the phone today, but he would know. I would go into a real shell for 2 or 3 days. I would go into my room, I would be upset, I'd be very quiet at home, I'd be very disappointed. I would spend a lot of time about thinking about the past rather than focusing on what can I do in the future to improve. And as I got better and a bit older and mature, I started to forget about what happened because you can't change what happened in the past. You can only control what you can do the next day and focus on what you can do the next day. So I think with experience, I learned that the past is the past. You might have not had a good match. It happens to everyone. But think about the future. I had too much, when I was 19, 20, 21, I took the failure a lot at heart. I would think about the past too much, and that also impacted my mental strength and my energy to get better in the future. But then again, you learn as you go along. So I think failure is important, but the way you manage failure and the way you think about the next day is most important. Forget about the past, forget about the failure. Think about how best to improve and move on. And that's how I did things in my life.
How to choose a best college? How to choose a best college?
How to choose a best college? Sorry, I missed the question.
Yes, sir. How to choose a best college?
So you're talking about college in India or anywhere?
India only, sir.
I mean, it depends. So when I was in Chennai, it was very clear. Loyola College was the best college. I think it still is the best college from my perspective for a Bachelor in Commerce. It depends on what you want to do, what degree you want to get. So you have very good medical colleges, you have very good engineering colleges, and you have very good colleges for business. And I chose Loyola because of 2 reasons. One was it had a very good business curriculum. The education system was the strongest in Chennai, and it had a very good cricket team. And I was actually invited to go to Loyola College because of my state. I was a state cricketer. So they had a system where they had state cricketers given a priority to join the college. But for me, it was very clear. I had 2 goals in my objectives. One was to play for the state, to captain the college, and to play for a good college. And the second thing was to get a good education. And Loyola College offered me both. So I think, from your perspective, for each of you in the class, you got to think about which field you want to get into. If you want to be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, accountant, if you want to have a balance of college life and cricket or sport life, you got to look at the college that will suit you best. So I don't think there's one answer for this. It depends on you as an individual and where you want to focus in your careers. So I know there's some very good engineering colleges. There's some very good colleges for doctors, for dentists. But for me, it was Loyola because it had a very good Bachelor of Commerce degree and it had a very good cricket team and very good reputation for sport. That's how I chose my college, and it's the same. It's the same with all of you. I think you should think about where you want to be and how you then go into a particular college in Chennai or in India.
Oh, thank you, sir. Sorry, I had a bad network. I
That's
wasn't
okay.
able to. So, moving ahead, what are the important qualities from your point of view to achieve your goals and be successful?
Yeah, I think I touched on this, Zafar. So basically, like I said, for me, the biggest quality is hard work. There's no substitute for hard work. So people can get lucky sometimes in life, and they get into positions because they know somebody or somebody gets them in there. But if I were to say 3 or 4 qualities, first one to me is going to be always hard work, perseverance. Never ever give up. It doesn't matter how difficult the situation is. If you put your mind to it and work hard, you will achieve success. And to give you an example again, so I worked very hard in my cricketing career. Very hard. I would practice very hard, I trained very hard. And at the end of the day, when I left India, I didn't achieve the success that I wanted to achieve in cricket. But everything I'd learned from my cricketing career to be disciplined. So can you imagine getting up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning to go for training for nearly 300 days a year for 15 years straight? We did that. Satya and me did that every day. We were disciplined. We missed out on a lot of things that other people were doing because we had a career to focus on in sports. So for me, hard work is very important because what it taught me in my cricketing days, when I'm in my work now, I have long days. I have 14-hour days, but it doesn't faze me because I'm used to this. I have a very strong habit that I built up from my early days, where it works in sport, it works in professional life, it works in personal life. Because in personal life too, you have challenges, and unless you have a strong foundation, you can't survive. So for me, it's hard work, perseverance is number one. The second thing is curiosity. So, like I said, I've never been someone who has been comfortable. So as soon as I get comfortable, I need a challenge, the next challenge. That's just me. Other people are different. I know some of my friends who are in Sydney, for example, are in the same job for 15 years, for 20 years. And that works for them, it's fine. In my 20 years in my career, I've now lived in 4 countries, and I had about 6-7 jobs. My wife, Nadine, who's from Germany, who I met from Germany, she's moved with me. She's worked in about 10 companies and moved around. Because again, we are very similar. We like to be curious, we like to learn and develop. And if we get comfortable, it gets a bit difficult because we get bored. We need the next challenge. So I think if you want to be successful, you need to be curious. If you want to be comfortable, you can have a comfortable life, but you'll have a certain level which you'll achieve, which you won't go any higher than that. So if you see any leader, they want to be curious, they want to get to the next level all the whole time. Obviously, you've got to take care of your health, you've got to take care of your family at the same time, but be curious. The third ones for me are very important too. Always have integrity in what you do. So I was born in Chennai, I lived in 4 countries after that. I haven't changed the way I am as a person. My personality is always to do the right thing, to be a good person, to have integrity in your values, and don't compromise. So if somebody would give me a shortcut, but it's not right, I would never do it. Because I haven't been brought that way, I haven't been built that way. Even in cricket, for example, I would always say, I will perform really well, and I will get selected. I wouldn't try and go to a selector and say, can you please pick me, I'll take you out for lunch. People did that when I was playing. I would never do that. So integrity, for all of you in the school, think about it. You need to have integrity, you need to stick to your values and be strong about it. Don't change, don't become a bad person because you have an easy way to get a big popular job or become famous. Do the right thing. And the fourth thing is always respect people. So it doesn't matter if you are the most senior person in the company, it doesn't matter if you're the most junior person, it doesn't matter if you play for India or whatever you achieve. Respect people, treat them with respect, and be a good person. So for me, that's very important. So I've had a chance to work with so many people and live across different countries. I have friends from India I still talk to. I have friends from Sydney, from Singapore, and you always have to respect people. Because to me, that's the most important thing. When I finish off my career in, say, 10, 15, 20 years, people won't remember me for Sid played cricket for Tamil Nadu or Sid was a CRO for AIG or Zurich. They remember me as the person I was. Did I change their life with being a good person? Or was I a bad person? They won't care about me being CRO or state cricketer. So I think these 4 things are important. So hard work, perseverance, curiosity, integrity, and respect. These are the 4 traits I would really instill in all of you in the school. If you have them and you create these good habits at a young age, I can tell you, the habits I have from a young age, I still have now. Some good habits, some bad habits, like eating sweets. I still eat too many sweets because when I was young, I liked sweet. So think about it now when you're young and develop these good habits because they will always come back to bite you at some point in your life. So you have good habits that stay with you, you have bad habits that stay with you. So start creating good habits. So one habit I did not create when I was young, too much to the extent I would like to, was reading books. When I was finished playing cricket matches, I would watch a cricket match on TV. I would watch something else on TV. I never read much. And even now to get into reading, it's very difficult because I didn't have the habit growing up. So again, create these 4 traits, create the hard work, create curiosity, integrity, respect, and build these habits young because they will always help you at any age in your life. It doesn't change.
And I would like to call Mahi for asking his question. Mahi, please come forward. Mahi? Okay. Okay. Next question. What do you enjoy more? Your past cricket career or your current working profession, and why?
I think that's a good question. I mean, right now I enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy my working profession and what I'm doing. I'm in a new country and meeting new people. If you gave me a choice as to what I would choose in my life, it would be cricket. I love the game. But I guess, again, you've got to think about it in which part of life you're in at that moment. So in my youth, when I was 15 to 30, for example, cricket was the best thing I had in my life. I mean, I played with so many cricketers. I played with and against a lot of famous cricketers. I enjoyed playing on the field. But now if you ask me, I'm in a different phase in my life. Now I've settled down. I like my working career. I like the interaction with people in my office. It's very stimulating from an intellectual capacity. So I feel as we all evolve and we grow and we move into these different parts of our life, different things appeal to us. But I think if you were to give me a chance and say, okay, cricket career for life, moving from a cricketer to maybe a commentator to a coach of the Indian team or versus an office career, I'd always choose cricket. But I guess where I am now in my career, in my life, I'm very happy. So I think what you have to think about as young students is you will go through different phases where you'll have different likes and dislikes because you're young, and then you move into a slightly more mature phase in your life, and you might think differently about what makes you happy. The main thing is you got to stay in the moment and enjoy what you did. The one thing I would like to do differently if I was playing now in my cricket life was to actually not be so stressed about succeeding in every match. So whenever I went to play a match, for example, for Tamil Nadu, I knew because of the pressure they placed on me was if I didn't score runs in that match, I wouldn't play the next match. So every match I played, I was under pressure. I didn't enjoy myself in many of these games in certain cases. So I think the main thing is you've got to stay in the moment, enjoy the moment. You will have different likes as you go on and become a bit older. But yeah, I've enjoyed both phases of my career. I think I put them in 2 buckets: my sports career before I left India, and then my professional career after I left India. They both give me a lot of satisfaction and fun.
Thank you, sir. We have a question from our alumni student, Brother Umar. Now I would like to call Brother Umar to ask his question.
Hello,
Brother
sir.
Umar?
Yes.
Hello.
So yeah. So my question is that why did you give up on your cricketing career, and what is your advice to someone who's aspiring to be a sports person? So basically, I'm 17. I've just finished school. What will
Okay.
your advice be?
And what sport do you play?
Football, sir.
Okay.
I'm actually
So,
going to the UK.
yeah, cricket and
I'm actually moving to UK for higher studies.
Okay. Which part of UK? London?
Warwick, University of
Okay.
Warwick.
Okay. So your first question, why I gave up cricket? Good question. So when I gave up cricket, I was 27, and so when I was 17, 18, 19, I was doing really well under 19s. I played for under 19 South Zone. I played with the likes of the captain was Rahul Dravid. We had MSK Prasad. We had VS Lakshman. Lots of big names playing who went on to play for India from the South Zone team. I was very successful in those games. I was the India under 19 standby for the one-day team. I didn't get into the team eventually. And then I was always touted as somebody who would make it very big in Tamil Nadu from a young age. So if I think about it, that was 19. And every year, as every year went by, I was always said you play for Ranji Trophy at 20, 21, 22. I was performing really well in the state games. I didn't get in. I eventually made my debut in 1998, 1999. I made my debut for Tamil Nadu in a one-day game. I went to bat in the 49th over. We had 2 overs left. So I was an all-rounder. I was batting number 4 or 5. I would bowl first change. A good all-rounder. And then I got to bat in the 49th over. I got out for 7 or 4 balls because obviously you're trying to get the quickest runs in the 50th over. I didn't get a chance to bowl that match. And then I got dropped for the next game. And I didn't play a single game the whole season after that. So I was on the sidelines in the 15 for the whole season, giving drinks to people, serving drinks as a substitute or being a substitute fielder for players who came in after me without the performance that I had. And that kind of made me very disillusioned about the whole setup because I spent so many years trying to prove myself and doing really well, but politics in Tamil Nadu cricket was high at that point in time. It was all about who they could push into the team, who had some networks in place. And I got to a point where I felt, if I kept doing this at 27, 28, 29, 30, I would never make it to the highest level, first of all, because of the politics. And two, I was getting a bit older. If you want to play for the national team, you've got to get in earlier to play. So I decided that at that point, do I want to stay in India and be a cricket coach and talk about my past glory, or should I make a change in my career? And that's why I chose to make a change, and make a hard change and say, Tamil Nadu is not the right setup for me. They don't recognize my talent here. I need a new scenery. And that's why I said, okay, I'll do my MBA and went to Sydney. And I totally changed my career from being on the field for, like I said, 10, 12 hours a day, to being totally off the field and to learn from the basics, how to work in a company, and then from there start my career in the professional environment. So the reason why I stopped playing cricket was obviously I had to make a decision at some point in time as to how long I could keep doing something where I knew the future was limited and I could have a different future, and that's why I stopped at that age and I moved to a different career. So I think that was the main reason for me to move on from cricket. It was a tough decision, but I had to do it, and I think in hindsight it was the right decision. For you, moving to the UK at 17, I think it's a great opportunity. I went to UK for 2 seasons for cricket when I was 23 and 24. It taught me a lot. I spent the summer playing for minor counties in the UK. My cricket really improved. And as I mentioned earlier, you meet new people, you see different cultures, you get used to different communication styles. You get exposed to a lot more than what you're exposed to in India. I think that's a great thing for you. And for you, I think what you should do when you're 17 and you're playing football, no better place to start your football career than in the UK. Learn to meet new people. Learn to understand different cultures. Build your network, because people I met in the UK, for example, when I went to UK for the cricket summers, the cricket manager, his brother, was in Sydney. And when I went to Sydney, he said, by the way, my brother's in Sydney, you can stay with him for 2 weeks before you find a place when you went to Sydney. So my first 2 weeks in Sydney was with a total stranger, but I met him because of my cricket contact. So try and build your relationships when you go to UK. And coming back to sport, I think it's the same thing again. You need to be focused, dedicated, and work hard. There's no substitute for working hard. And always push yourself. Don't be happy with some success in the game today, because it's a new game tomorrow, and a new game the after tomorrow. So always think about how you can improve and push your career further. That's my advice to you.
Thank you, sir, and best of luck, Brother Umar, for in your career.
All the best, Umar.
Now, there is another question from Brother Hanif. There is another question from Brother Hanif. Brother Hanif, please come forward.
Yeah, so I had two questions basically, but one of them was already asked by Umar. That was, what was your deciding factor with cricket? So you have already answered that. My second question was, have you ever regretted leaving cricket for your professional career? And so, if you were given a chance that you could go back in time and change that decision, would you take it?
Yeah, I don't regret giving up my career, because I think that was a decision I made to have a new career. So I won't regret that piece. What I would, I'm not somebody who has regrets. I think you always give it your best shot, and if you give it your best shot, you're happy, you can move on. But I do regret a couple of things when I was playing cricket. So to answer the second part of your question, like I said, when I was 19, 20, I was doing very well. I was being recognized by different states. When I didn't get picked for the state in Tamil Nadu, I had a couple of options. So I was approached by Punjab to play for Punjab for the Ranji Trophy team when I was 21. At that time I was 21, I was very innocent, I believed everybody for what they told me. So I went and asked some of the senior cricketers in Tamil Nadu, what should I do? And these cricketers were playing for India at that time. So I asked 3 or 4 of them. And they said, Siddhartha, don't leave Tamil Nadu, you're definitely going to play next year. Don't go to Punjab, you'll play here. Don't leave, you're wasting an opportunity. So that's the first thing. So I believed them. That was an opportunity, and I don't know if you recall the history of Indian cricket. Another cricketer left Tamil Nadu, went to play for Punjab, and played for India in 2 years. I'm not saying I would play for India, but I was promised by Bishan Singh Bedi, who rang me to make me the offer that I would play 5 games. I didn't take it. I asked my dad the same question: what should I do? Should I go to Punjab? And he said, son, you're right in your second year college. What's going to happen to your degree? I think you should stay. And by the way, you've spoken to all these Tamil Nadu cricketers who play for India, who think you play for Tamil Nadu. So believe them and stay back in Tamil Nadu. So I think that's, if I had made that move to Punjab in 92, 93, it might have been different, because, with sport or with life or with work or anything you do, sometimes it doesn't matter how good you are. It's about the opportunity you get to be exposed to showcasing your skills. If I had taken the chance to go to Punjab, and if I had a good season, for example, he offered me 5 games to bat number 4 and to bowl opening or first change. If I did well, I might have played for North Zone in a couple of years. That's one step on playing for India, one step away for playing for India. So I think the only regret I had was I was very gullible and very, very innocent, and I believed the people around me. And like I said, that was in 1992, 1993. I eventually played for the state in 1998, 99, so 6 years later. If I'd gone to Punjab when I was 20 to 23, I was in really good form. They would have got me much fitter, because Bedi was known for his fitness routines. It might have been different. So if I think about it, that's my only regret, that I didn't make the decision to go, because people could have seen what I could have done on the big stage. I was doing very well. I just didn't get enough exposure to showcase those skills on the big stage, and that could have been different. But in saying that, I didn't go to Punjab. I stayed in Tamil Nadu. I went to Sydney. I met my wife in Australia. So again, things happen sometimes for a reason, and everything works out. But to answer your question, that would be a regret, not taking the opportunity just to see what I could have done and how I could have showcased my skills at that level.
Thank you, sir, for the very good answer. Now I have a question from Dr. Ali. So, sir, you can ask your question now, sir.
Hi, Siddharth.
Hi.
I'm Khalil.
I can't hear you clearly. I can't hear you clearly.
Yeah, I'm 1 year junior to you in TV.
Okay.
I'm an ophthalmologist now.
Good to hear.
Dr. Khalil, yeah, good. Okay, I'm just curious, which is what, according to your opinion, which is the best place to live in? You've been to Australia, Singapore, one of the best places in UK, in New York, everywhere. Almost the whole world you have covered. And you have experienced so many things there. So, which do you think is the best place to live in overall, with the family and people, everything?
Tough question to answer. If you're thinking about overall, I would say Sydney is great. It's a great place to live because you have great weather. It's very family oriented, and the work-life balance is great over there. People are very friendly. They welcome you into the community. It's fantastic. If you're just with your wife, if you're single, New York City, you can't beat New York City. It's the best city to live in if you want to have a good time. You got everything there in New York. It's very multicultural. They're very welcoming. They're very friendly. But I think it's more if you're younger and you're getting up in your career. Also from a career perspective, if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere in the world. So I think again it goes back. And right now in Dublin, if you have a family, it's perfect. It's a great place to be. The weather isn't as good as Sydney because it rains a lot here. It's a bit cooler. But in terms of work-life balance, people's attitudes and relationship building, it's a fantastic city. Singapore is nice too. Singapore is 4 hours from Chennai. So if you want to go back to Chennai, it's very easy. And again, it's very, very good. It's very safe for families there too. But the weather is really hot. So it's hot and humid the whole year. So I think the easiest answer, each city I lived in has different advantages, not many disadvantages. And even New York City, and what you see in the news is very different. If you live in New York City, it's a fantastic place to be. You have so much to do. There's so many opportunities. The pace of New York City is unlike anything else we see in the world. It's the city which never sleeps. It's true. And to go back to my city, Chennai, Madras. I love Madras. Whenever I come home, people are warm. My friends are there. So I think on the whole, it depends on what phase of life you're in to really enjoy the cities you're in. And you can make it work anywhere. If you had a family, you can make it work in New York, but then you have to really be in a good job to make it work in New York. So again, it depends on where you are. But I think New York City, if you want to have a great time, if you're younger and coming up in your career, but Sydney, Dublin, or Singapore, if you have families, Singapore obviously weather is different, but if you're from Chennai, you're used to the heat. So I've enjoyed living everywhere, including Chennai. So I think that's my answer to you. It's a bit of a safe answer, but that's my answer.
Thanks. That's great.
But I think for all of you in school, you should think about experiencing different cities or different parts of the world, because that exposure that you get is the best exposure I've had to build your career, to build your confidence, to build the way you communicate, to build your network globally. Nothing beats having exposure to live around the world, because then you've taken different parts of experiences from different people, and that adds to your knowledge, adds to your skill set. So I would definitely recommend people thinking about moving out of their comfort zone. Chennai is a very comfort zone kind of city. You have your friends, your family, everything is kind of set up for you. I would really encourage all of you to think about the future, where you think about moving out for a few years. Unlike me, I didn't go back because I met my wife and she's not from India, so I'm in a different part of the world. But it's good to leave the country and see different things. That's my definite advice to all of you.
Thank you, sir. It's my aim to make the world to. Your words have tested me a lot now. Next, I have a question from our correspondent Nurul Amin, sir. Sir, please go ahead, sir. The screen is yours now.
Hi, Siddhartha. Thank you so much for joining.
Hey, good to see you.
I'm Satya's classmate. We are together.
I know. Good to see you. Thanks for the invitation.
No, it's a great honor to have you on this program, and very, very resourceful, and a lot of takeaways for our children. Really appreciate. I also made sure I made a note that all our students should have integrity, hard work, perseverance, curiosity, and respect for people. And these are all great qualities that all our students should have, and I'm sure it's taken you to a great thing, to places, and we'll take everybody along with you also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Siddhartha, I just wanted to also just get one piece of advice from you. There are a lot of students who are almost very passionate and attached to certain sports, and that becomes their first priority at the cost of maybe academics or whatever. But maybe they may not have got the opportunity to rise so much in their sports career itself. Maybe they didn't have the break to go up in the ladders like you have actually traveled. So that type of opportunities were not presented to them in some way or the other. But still, that attachment is there. Yeah. So how do we balance that? From school management perspective or others? How do we sort of put that sense? Because it's sort of we feel guilty if we are discouraging anybody from sports. Not only to play, let them pursue it as much as they can. We give them all the encouragement. But then when the student is choosing sports over a career, like how you chose, you kept your 1 foot in college, even though you had the opportunity to go to Punjab, you still stayed back, you got yourself your degree, and that you could use when you went to Sydney. So how do we find this balance? Or how do we put that sense in a very in a balanced way to the students? That you do pursue, but at the same time, don't give up. Keep another foot inside the other door.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Rul. I think, and again, from my experience, and if I had my chance back in school, for example, in Don Bosco, how we were at school.
Yes,
we had lots of fun.
Absolutely.
And, there were certain subjects which I didn't like too much, and there were certain subjects I liked a lot. And I was also playing cricket. I only wish I had concentrated on all subjects equally, because even now in my job today, everything I've learned in school and college comes back at some point. And when I didn't focus on certain things in college, for example, or in school, because I was playing cricket, I was being mischievous in class with some of the teachers, sometimes in a funny manner, it comes back later on. And even now, I think I just wish I spent a bit more time in the mathematics class, focusing on these things. So I think having passion is important, but not at the cost of sacrificing the fundamentals. So for me now, with hindsight, the benefit of hindsight, and the fact that I made the move and I've been successful by going into studies. So if you think about it, when I was in school, I had my Don Bosco school and I had my Loyola College BCom. In my BCom, I had this thing called 1 test, 1 assignment. So just to give you some context to the students, all students had to do 3 tests and 3 assignments, and they would get the best average of 2 of those, but they had to do 3. Because I was a state player and the college captain, I had the privilege, or even Satya had the same thing, 1 test, 1 assignment. I will do the first test and first assignment, and that became your mark for the average for your final marks. So the first test is always the easiest one. I get it done all the way, get a really good mark, and I would study hard. I would use the same fundamentals and study hard to get that 1 mark. But then the second and third test, I wouldn't do it, which meant I didn't actually study for those tests. And then I'd go to the final exam and cram last minute. And you know how it is, you go to the exam, everything comes out, and then you forget. So I think students in your school should always understand one thing. You can have a passion for sport, you can be very good in sport too. But if you think about a good sportsman, they also have been good in studies. They learn to balance both. And you can't give up studies because you want to be good in cricket. You can never do that because you always have to have a backup plan. I always believe in having a backup plan. And education is not a backup plan, it is the plan. You have the foundations of a strong education. You be passionate about cricket or soccer or anything else, and don't get fixated on one sport. Enjoy different things until you understand where you want to be, but not at the cost of giving up your education. Because I can tell you one thing: I've seen many people who have gone on the path that I've gone down, being very good in cricket, And I'm not the only person who's been unlucky not to play at a higher level. There's many of me running around. But they didn't make the move into what I've done because either they got into a comfort zone or they felt they'd stay back in Chennai and become a coach. When I go back to Chennai and meet them now, they're very frustrated because they didn't make the move. They said, you did the right thing, you left India, or you went and got a degree. So always have the plan that you have your education up and running the whole time. So when I left India, I did my MBA, I did my Master's in Risk and Insurance Management, I did my Diploma in Applied Finance and Investments. I did 3 degrees in 6 years. I made up for all my non-studies before I left India because I knew we had to do that. So I think for your students on the call today, the first thing I would say to them is never ever sacrifice your studies for sport. You can do both. I did both. You have to become disciplined. And it's much harder doing both because some of my friends who were really good students, all they did was study. But for me, I had to get up in the morning. My dad would drop Satya and me at school for practice in Don Bosco. Early, go back home, quick shower change, come back to school to do your school. Then go back home, quick change, go back to practice again. So to get better in both, you have to work harder. To work harder, again, it goes back to the fundamentals. You need to be disciplined, dedicated. You need to sacrifice time with friends, time outside, because you want to achieve both successfully. And if you can compartmentalize both and don't sacrifice on one or the other, you'll be successful. So I think for your students, I mean, you can be. I'm still passionate about cricket. I love the game, but I'm not playing it now because it takes up the whole day for me. I'm into running. Again, I transitioned from that to stay fit into running because I have different priorities. But it comes back to time management. It comes back to being dedicated to working hard. Things don't come easy, as you know. You have to really put in the hard work. But the one thing I'll tell the students is never ever sacrifice your studies. Because you cannot, I mean, there's a lot of people in India think, cricket's the only way out, and then they fail in cricket and everything goes down the drain. Because they have this mindset where it's very passionate. And they lose a bit of rational thinking. Be rational, because if you think about your future in 15, 20 years, your cricket career is then finished for 35, at the most, unless you play IPL and stuff. After you have to live for another 40 years. You can't live just off it. And not everyone you see can become a commentator or a coach. You have to have networks and connections and stuff. So keep your studies, build that educational foundation elements really well, so you can switch. You can move from having a bachelor in commerce, you can move to an MBA, and you have different avenues. So I would never shut myself out to being just a cricket player. You have to have an all-round thought process, and that's what I think you should really encourage your students to do. And to me, if I have one regret in life apart from cricket, when I didn't go to Punjab, is that I didn't always focus in the moment in school. I was always thinking about when can I go and play cricket? When the class finishes, go and play cricket on the basketball court. If I just focus more on the moment, so the one thing for your students is always be family 100%. Don't do things 50-50, because I've done things 50-50. When I'm sitting in class and thinking of cricket, so you don't focus in class and you're not playing cricket, so you're not getting both. So again, the advice to all of you would be, and that's what I do now. If I'm looking at a presentation at work, I'm thinking of presentation at work. I'm not thinking of what I can do in the evening, because then you distract yourself. So again, focus, foundational elements, don't ever compromise in education. And if you're good in your studies, you'll be good in sport, because that means you can manage your time well. That's my advice.
Great, so very, very valuable advice and very well said. But tell me this one more thing. What is multitasking? People do multitasking, right? But then what you're saying is to stay focused on the moment. So how do we balance those?
Yes, again, I think multitasking is a very loose term. So right now I'm talking to you and your students. I could be on the phone WhatsApping somebody else. That they say is multitasking. That to me is, I'm not focused 100% here. I'm not focused 100% on the students or the WhatsApp message. So I always believe you have to compartmentalize and you have to prioritize your activity. So if I know my day today, Sunday afternoon, I'm going to go for a run, I'm going to have coffee, I won't do both at the same time, because I think multitasking, you lose that focus. But it doesn't mean you can't do different things, but don't do it at the same time. If you're studying for an exam, you study for exam. You don't study with your book in front and watch a cricket match on TV. That's not multitasking. that is losing focus. So I don't believe in the term multitasking because it detracts from the actual focus. So right now, like I said, if I'm talking to the students now, I'm talking to you. I don't have my phone with me. My phone's off. I don't see messages coming through because I know that's going to distract from my conversation with you. So I would recommend that you stay in the moment. If you're in class, you stay in class. But don't get stuck in one avenue. Don't do it for the whole 24 hours. Take breaks. If you want to take a 30-minute break and go and do something on the side, or go for a little jog or get some fresh air, do that. That's not multitasking, but that's just making sure you prioritize your activities in a much more efficient manner.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Sid. Sid, I have the rare opportunity of showing you our school. This is Sana School. Can you see?
No, I can't see the video for some reason.
No, you can't see the video. Okay. Anyway, I'll send you pictures.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words were indeed motivating.
And again, I'm happy you feel that way. And the other thing is, if any of you want some advice or you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn, or reach out get my details from Abdul. I'm happy to have a talk to you about your careers, your sport, your studies. So this is not the end of the conversation. So if you need to reach out, you can reach out to me via email or phone call or anything else. I'm happy to have a chat with any of you.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Yeah, and
thank you, sir.
And Zufar, I would just like to share something about Sid with everybody. Boys, I just wanted to share the memories. One everlasting memory of Sid is in school is he used to break the glasses in the school with his huge sixes. He was the one and only who could do this. Even if the school was far away from the pitch, he would break those glasses. Sir, do you remember those?
Yes, of course. We were very, very proud of Sid.
Hey, Abdul, I'll tell you a small secret.
Yeah.
I used to do it on purpose. I used to have fun in practice. I would pick the window to break certain days. But don't tell the principals now.
Okay. So we are coming to the close of the session. Sid, any last few words you want to share before we leave?
No, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak to all of you. And I think the main thing, again, I just want to leave you all with is, the main thing that I see is you need to have a right attitude if you want to be successful. That's the most important thing. And don't stay in the comfort zone. If you want to be successful, if you want to be moving around different countries and achieve bigger things in life, don't stay in your comfort zone. Move out. Be uncomfortable, because that's when you get challenged and that's when you improve. So if you can actually think about having a strong attitude, and as I mentioned, those 4 traits about, hard work, curiosity, integrity, respect, stay out and then move out of your comfort zone. That will make you a real success in life. And also the other thing you think about is life is all about people. Build relationships. Be a good person. Build relationships wherever you go, because you never know where you go next. They always come back. You always see people. I met so many people since I left India who I didn't meet in Chennai, but I met them in Singapore. I met them in New York because they were traveling. So at the end of the day, we are all people. We all crave relationships and community. So focus on building good relationships and don't stay in your comfort zone. That will make you a much, much more successful person. And thank you once again for having me today, Abdul.
Yeah, thank you, Sid. And in the initial stages, we had some connection issues. So one student could not make it. We have him again, so we can continue with what we missed out, the Nasheed and the vote of thanks, and we'll finish the session. Zufar, over to you.
Okay, sir. Now I would like to call Brother Atta for Nasheed. Brother Atta.
Assalamu alaikum. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Every time when I'm awake, all things that I see, I know it's hard to believe, but it's from the Almighty. When the leaves fall from the tree, every plant that grows on land, when the waves flow in the sea, it's by His command. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Brother Atta, for such a beautiful nasheed. And to propose the vote of thanks, I would like to call Syed Samir of class 9. Amir, please welcome.
It's my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks on the significant forum. I, Syed Samir, on behalf of Sanskrit and the entire fraternity of the institution. First of all, extend my most sincere thanks to the Almighty. A sincere thanks to our esteemed guest, Mr. Siddhartha, for pressing this. So, a word has offered us to visualize things from a new perspective. A heart attack that you mean our facilitator and our teachers who can reduce to inspire us in working with zeal and dedication. So, we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us in our future events. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path. I again thank our esteemed guests for words of wisdom that radiated today in guiding us through your knowledge. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Samir.
Thank you, Samir. And once again, thank you, sir, for making your time in your busy schedule to join us this day. It's been my pleasure. Thank you, sir. It's been my pleasure to host this session, and I wish you all a pleasant day. Thank you once again, sir.
Good job,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sid.
Thank you so much,
boys,
sir.
for joining.
Thank you again, Siddharth. Appreciate your
Thanks a lot.
Have a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, all the best.
Thank
all
you.
the best.
Please come and visit us in our school when you come to Chennai next time.
Yeah, when I come to Chennai, I'll do this in person.
Great. We look forward to it. Thank you again.
Yeah, bye. Subhanallah.
See, Abdul.
Subhanallahi walhamdulillahi wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum.